All right. So, good morning, everyone that's joined on today, or happy afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in your time zone as you join us here live today, or for those of you that are checking in and tuning in to listen to this conversation a little bit later. I'm so happy that you have each joined us. Um, Again, as I said a moment ago, a number of you are on here that have joined us or been part of our past Ayurvedic postpartum doula courses, and you're here once more just to check in. I love it, and I'm so very happy to see each of you. You might see my attention kind of darting side to side. I'm going to be admitting people as they request to join in over the next couple of minutes. But meanwhile, we'll go ahead and get started. Eileen has asked, do you want our videos off, Jenna? And I would love for your videos to stay on, but it's whatever you're comfortable with. And you guys, I believe, have access to mute or unmute yourself. So if at any point throughout this conversation today, you have a question or a comment, something you'd like to share, a question you may have, please feel free to type it into the chat box, and I will go ahead and move this conversation towards you so we can answer your question, or feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question that way as well. So whatever you prefer, we're just going to let it be a free flow. All right, so again, hello and welcome everyone. We have 9 of you on here at the moment, and more are checking in and requesting to come into the chat group. All right, and then I hope that this video can get out to as many people as possible once we're finished. I plan to publish this over on YouTube, and I will share the link and the recording, all that we go over. I will share it today, or I'll share it in the next email that goes out from Ayurvedic Mamas. So when you receive the link, or once our conversation is complete, I would love it if you could share this with any of your people, whether you're a doula, a birth worker, a woman preparing for conception and preparing for your own 40 weeks and then 42 days postpartum. Whether you're an expectant mother, and whoever you are, maybe you're just a friend or a sister that has someone close to you that's preparing for their postnatal period, and you're here just to kind of help them. That's so beautiful. So whoever you are, please share this out in the world, this information. We have so much rich content to share with you today, and only 1 hour to do it, so let's dive in. All right, so in the next couple of weeks, we are going to be starting on October 12th, the Fall Ayurvedic Postpartum Doula virtual certificate course. And it's a 6-week course, meaning it rolls out in 6 modules, but you have 1 year to complete everything, to go through the process of being certified by Ayurvedic Mamas as an Ayurvedic postpartum doula. And though you have 1 year to complete the course content, for certificate purposes, you'll actually have everything that is released through the course platform. It'll be yours forever, for life. It's on there and it's yours. So you can reference back to it at any point, and truly, truly take your time with it. We have a few amazing bonuses that I wanted to make sure that you all are aware of. For those of you that register with us in the next week, you'll be receiving all of our past expert interviews. So we have a woman on there sharing a dialogue and conversation around postnatal healing with the use of placenta encapsulation and vaginal steaming and belly wrapping, Chinese medicine. We have so many different modalities that we're able to interweave into this scope of care, and really incredible experts that have come on to offer their insight. So that's available to you as well. In addition, we're also doing one-on-one mentorships for those of you that register soon. Those mentorships will be rolled out as we get started through our 6-week modules, and over on the website. You can read more information, and if you ever have any questions about any of it, feel free to reach out to me. I'm almost 100% available here for you guys at this time. And then last thing I want to say before we jump into our content this morning is that through the next few days, we have our early bird discount registration. So it's $100 off on the course. It's going to be going through the next few days, and the code, when you go through the registration, the discount code is early doula. So one word, or written as one word, early doula, all lowercase, and that'll give you $100 off. So today, our master class is going to be covering some really incredible information, important information. I'm going to get to as much as I possibly can in the next hour. I want to introduce myself first before we get started. Again, my name is Jenna Furnari, and I'm one of the founders of Ayurvedic Mamas and one of the directors that have helped to develop and put together and build out this really incredible course, reaching women truly throughout this country, the United States, almost all 50 states, and also countries around the world. So as I mentioned in one of my stories yesterday, I've lost track of where everyone is here from, and that's exciting. It's not only exciting to see this work and this beautiful package and course and delivery that's truly come from our heart to reach more of you, but to consider the amount of women, the amount of mothers that will be impacted and that will benefit by each of you from receiving the content that you're going to share today and throughout your time, just being active in this field. So I'm excited for that. I am a certified Ayurvedic practitioner primarily. I began studying yoga and Ayurveda, gosh, it's been 15 or 20 years. I'm certified by the Nationally Accredited Medical Association of Ayurveda, specializing in birth and postnatal care. I also have gone through the more common, I guess you could say, the more common postnatal doula trainings as well, just to have that to complement the Ayurvedic approach. And I began this practice years back prior to having kids, although having my two children, my son who's 3, my daughter who's almost 5 months, they both have taught me so much. And two very different experiences going through that healing process following their birth. So it's still coming forward. I'm still moving through the healing process myself. And what's most important to me at this point is to share forward this information for you to reach as many women, expectant mothers as possible around the world. So as you know, COVID and all things pandemic have pretty severely changed our world today, and specifically we'll look at how it's changed the birth world and the postpartum healing world. So I gave birth to my daughter Sienna in April, and that was when we were right in the first heat, the heat of when COVID, when it all started to come forward, and there was all of the emotions from all of us that were truly stirred up in the greatest way as we entered into that period. And I fortunately am surrounded by an incredible community, and that is in thanks to you guys and in thanks to the friends that I've made, the women that I've connected with through this work. So in thanks to that community and in thanks to that work, I truly feel like I was able to set myself up for such an incredible process of healing after her birth. And so that's what I'm here to talk about today. There's 3 main points that I want to share. And before I jump into that, you just glance over to the chat box to make sure everyone's in. Okay, perfect. So there's three main points that I want to share today. And the first one that I want to talk about is food. So as you probably know, or as you're learning, Ayurveda, the science of life, it really focuses on, and it kind of starts at, lays the foundation at working with the gut and starting our health from the gut by everything that goes into our body, especially at these times when our bodies are in such great need of the deep healing following birth, whether it's vaginal and especially if it's a surgical birth. So foods are super, super important. And, you know, again, there's a number of factors now that limit a new mother's accessibility to have the right foods for herself after she's given birth. So a couple really simple, but I think effective, helpful tips that I'm going to share today will be a few recipes that I will share with you guys that you can then share with the women and the mothers in your life, that I recommend them getting busy in their kitchen prior to birth, prior to labor getting started. So right up until week 38, and week 38 is that point in pregnancy where a woman is likely to just feel kind of her energy just ground her down. Her energy is low. There's a lot less just capacity to move through the time that it takes to spend preparing these meals, doing the collection of all of the ingredients, doing the shopping or the ordering, going through the recipes, spending the time in the kitchen to prepare. And while these recipes are certainly different than what many of us may be used to eating or many of us may be used to preparing, they're not necessarily super challenging. And I say that I say that very consciously, because it's taken me a number of years to feel like I can go through any of these recipes and pretty simply and smoothly put the foods together. Definitely for the first time that you go through preparing them, it's going to take some practice. So the first couple of dishes that you prepare, go through the recipe first, read through it from start to finish, make sure that you have all of the ingredients in place and set up. So all of the chopping done, all of the rinsing done, all of your tools that you're going to be needing, the pots, the spoons, the knot, like everything is right there within reach. And that's a really important first phase of the food preparation and the work that goes into putting each of these dishes together. But then after you've done it a couple of times and you've followed a few of the recipes, you'll start to get the hang of it and it'll become easier and easier. So I'm going to share with you a few today. I'm going to jump over to a screen share in a moment so you can see the ones that I will suggest. But we have over 42 recipes in our recipe ebook, and our recipe ebook is a part of our Ayurvedic postpartum doula training. We also spend an entire week, an entire module, I believe it's module 5. I take that back. I think it was module 4. We spend a great amount of time going through each of the recipes, all of the most important points and pointers that we can share with you, and going through the preparation, all of the knowledge that you need to have, the Ayurvedic wisdom that's important to know and to feel in your body, and then also that can be shared with each of your clients. So for the foods that I'm going to share today, again, these are the foods that I will suggest for mothers to prepare prior to week 38. Ayurveda is big on eating fresh foods, especially when it comes to healing. That is, eating foods that have been prepared right then and there, or within the last 24 hours. So that's a little bit out the window at this point, again, considering all things pandemic. And what I'm suggesting today for each of you is to go through this list of foods, to, you know, build your own list of recipes, to even put your own recipes together that you can share with your clients, with your friends, or prepare yourself if you're the expectant mother. And then stock your freezer. So spend a day with each of these recipes, or maybe a single day to prepare a couple of them. Again, they're rather simple. Stock your freezer, and then set a plan, put a plan in place. And this kind of jumps forward to one of the points that I'll talk about later, which is communication. But put a plan in place with whoever you're going to be laboring with. So that might be your own mother, it might be a close friend, it's likely going to be your partner, but make sure that they are also aware that your freezer is stocked with these 5 dishes, or however many there are. Your ice chest is wherever it is, the ice packs that need to be included and packed into that ice chest. And then as soon as labor begins, he or she can go grab your ice chest, fill it with each of these dishes that you've stored in your freezer, and then take them with you to wherever the birth is going to be taking place. So the hospital, the birthing center, for those of you that are going to be birthing at home, amazing, you're already set up. So let's just go into, for example, you're going to be delivering at a hospital, and you have these foods in the freezer that you've prepared in advance. Your partner, your labor has begun, your partner is going to put them all into the ice chest. He or she is also going to be following your list of your hospital go bag to make sure that you have everything in the hospital, going to the hospital with you, that you'll need for those few days that you're going to be there. Again, another thing with COVID, and I know this is different from state to state and from county to county, so I'm only speaking from as I know it's being experienced here in Los Angeles County, is that once you're in the hospital and that one person is able to be there with you, there's no in and out. So once you're in, and your partner isn't able to leave the hospital and go run errands, go grab something for you and bring it back. So once he or she is in the hospital with you, they are also going to be there until you both are released to go home. Unless, of course, he or she decides that to leave a little bit early, which hopefully won't be the case. So having your hospital go bag is super important, and included in your hospital go bag can be each of these recipes, each of these dishes. You'll have these dishes. Hang on, I'm going to go into a screen share so you guys can see them. Let's see. Start share. Okay. Okay. Actually, I don't know if that's going to let me. I'm afraid if I jump over into a screen share right now, it's going to end the recording, which I don't want. So why don't I just type them over here in the chat box, which you guys can all see. So our recipes that I suggest sharing ahead of time are moist and slow cooked overnight oats. That's one. So super moist overnight oats. And those overnight oats, you can throw anything that you'd like into them. You can throw dates into them. You can throw fresh chopped ginger. You can throw, obviously, the wonderful spices, cardamom, cinnamon, nutmeg, list goes on. But 2 points that I would say are most important with the oats is that you use an excess amount of water, so they're soupy. and that you make sure you use plenty of ghee. So the ghee will help to nourish, hydrate, lubricate all of your whole system, your whole inward system, from it entering the body, going down into the gut, moving through digestion, moving through the intestines, and also lubricating and bringing some softness to the large colon. Those of you that have given birth or are mothers know that constipation is something that we all commonly experience after birth. So using plenty of ghee in these dishes is highly recommended. So dish number one is overnight oats. And the reason that I call it overnight oats is because obviously you don't have to cook them overnight, but it's a really simple way, a really simple process of just putting ideally steel cut oats and your water and all of your other ingredients that you're going to be using into a pot, turning on the heat, bringing the heat up to just a low simmer. And as soon as it reaches that simmering point, turning the heat off, covering the pot with a lid, and then just letting it rest overnight. The next morning, it'll be ready to go. So you can then pack it into your mason jar or however you're going to be storing it and putting it in the freezer, and it's good to go. The next dish is rice congee. So this is another simple one. The base ingredients are ghee, the spices, all of the kitchery spices, so turmeric, cumin, coriander, ginger. And again, you can be as creative with this, do some exploring, do some research, look at different rice congee recipes, but using, say 1 cup of rice to anywhere from 8 to 12 cups of water, and letting it slow cook for a really long period of time, obviously. So you bring it to a boil, lower the boil down to a simmer, and then allow for the pot to simmer throughout the day. Again, make sure you use plenty of ghee, stir it really well, and it's a super simple rice congee dish, but a really wonderful one. This is actually the dish that I recommend that a new mother puts into her body first after she's given birth, and she can just warm it up. While you're in the hospital, you can ask one of your nurses to warm up these dishes for you, and more often than not, they're really more than happy to do that and to warm up the dish and bring you a bowl back into your room, and then just slowly nibble on it as your appetite calls for it after having birth. So rice congee is dish number 2. And then having a really quality fresh bone broth. So that might be one that you prepare for yourself. It might be one that you purchase locally. If you have some great local bone broth, have a big jar of bone broth, maybe even 2 jars of bone broth, and sip on that. Make sure it's warm. So everything that goes into your body in this period is warm. Make sure that your bone broth is plenty warm and sip on that throughout the day. Not putting a large amount of any of these things into your body at once, but really just taking it slowly and listening inwards, listening to your appetite and listening to what's being called for. So bone broth is number 3. And then kitchery is number 4. This one, I had planned on sharing the recipe with you here. Let me think about how I could do this. I had planned on sharing this recipe with you here by doing a screen share. Let's see. I see a few questions that have come in, and I promise to get to those. I'm just going to check one last time. Okay. And again, I don't want to lose you guys, so I'm going to try one more thing to see if screen share works without closing this session. Screen share. All right. Can you guys give me a thumbs up if you can see the kitchery recipe? let's see. And of course, now that my Kitchery are awesome. Thank you, Eileen. I can see you. Okay, yay. Okay, so here's the Kitchery recipe, and I have a few of these. Again, this is part, so what you're seeing here is part of our course recipe ebook. And this is one of over 42 recipes that we share. We have a couple of Kitchery recipes on here as well. This is the most basic, and the reason that I'm sharing this one today, this basic recipe, is because just following birth is when she will want to put what is most easy to absorb and digest into her body. So what you can do is use your phone. If you're on your phone today, do a screenshot just capturing this recipe, or if you're looking at your computer screen, use your phone to snap a picture of this Kitchery recipe. So I'll hold it here for a moment, give you guys a second to capture it. You'll notice that it's made with split mung beans. Mung beans are always one of the most challenging ingredients to get your hands on because, again, it depends on where you live, depends on what your grocery store carries. They tend to be something that you can find online. So I commonly source Banyan Botanicals. That's an incredible Ayurvedic website. So if you just Google Banyan Botanicals, the website will come up, and they commonly carry split mung beans. So that's one option. Amazon, of course, will likely have them. In fact, Amazon, I believe I've ordered from Amazon to get the Banyan Botanicals split mung beans when Banyan Botanicals were out. So it's still the Banyan Botanicals brand, but Amazon happens to carry them and make them available as well. Or your grocery store. Split mung beans or sprouted mung beans are also an option that totally work. The one thing that I don't suggest is using whole mung beans, and that's because a whole mung bean is significantly more challenging for the body to break down and for the gut to digest. So split mung beans are ideal. Okay. So take a screenshot of this recipe, and then I'm going to scroll down to the next page to look at the instructions. Let me zoom out a little bit. Perfect. I'll leave that there so you guys can screen grab that or capture that on your phone. And then spend some time with this to look through it later. What I will also say is if you are not an expectant mother, if you're not yet a doula, perhaps you're just getting ready to go through our course to step into this role for the first time. This is actually a recipe that I recommend for all of us. It's incredibly Vata balancing. And for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, we're just moving the first couple of days into the fall season. Each of the seasons represent or hold more of the energy of one of the three doshas, and those three doshas are Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. In this course, we go through the Ayurvedic philosophy and talk about each of the three doshas, but we look specifically at Vata dosha because during the postpartum period is when Vata dosha most commonly goes out of balance for women. In the fall season is also the season of Vata. So when, the weather turns a little bit colder, the mornings are significantly colder than the midday. The middays tend to be warmer, but you're bundling up as you're stepping out your door for the first time in the morning. So that vast amount of shift that you're feeling in the climate, that also represents the energy of Vata dosha. So as we're experiencing it in the environment that surrounds us, it also shows up internally within our bodies. So for those of you here on the call today, enjoy this recipe for yourself. It's wonderful. Eat it weekly. Eat it as commonly as you can. Okay, we're going to stop our screen share. And I'm going to glance over to our chat box for a moment. So Cheryl, hi Cheryl, I'm so happy to see you today. I'm so happy you're here with us. Cheryl has asked, actually, she she was just putting in a comment about screen sharing. So never mind. That wasn't even a comment about the conversation. Welcome, Cheryl. And Amisha has asked, can we use dry fruits like dehydrated strawberries and blueberries? Great question. So short, quick answer is no. And that's because when you eat dried foods of any sort, they tend to be, what's the word? They tend to be astringent. So they pull moisture from our gut for the process of digestion, or they pull moisture from the intestines, they pull moisture from the large intestine. So that's when you eat foods that are dried. Later on, after especially the first couple of weeks, the mother, as long as she's having regular bowel movements, she's not feeling a lot of dryness across her body. So if she's feeling like that gut dryness, it'll show up in different symptoms throughout her and, her more external body. So her skin, her eyes even. So if she's not feeling dryness in those places, if she's feeling really well nourished and really well hydrated, she can start to slowly include dried fruits or other dried foods, as long as she's eating a small amount. But for these first couple of days that she's in the hospital, I would say no, definitely don't use them. That's my short answer. Great question though. Okay, so we have shared let me go back to my notes. Give me one moment. Oh, and since we figured out how to do screen share, let's see if I can also share my list of the recipes. This is on PowerPoint, so it's a little bit different than the way that I just, hang on. Screen share. Okay. This is just the list that I just shared with you guys, the meals to prep ahead of time. Overnight oats, rice congee, bone broth, khichdi, and then lastly is the lactation tea. And this doesn't require any preparation, but it's just something that I also recommend definitely taking with you to the hospital. Fennel and fenugreek are amazing. Adding a little bit of honey is wonderful. Or there's an amazing lactation tea that I love by Earth Mama Angel Baby. It's a company. So Google them, and it's the lactation tea. I don't know the name of the lactation tea off the top of my head, but when you go to their website, it's super clear. The lactation tea by Earth Mama Angel Baby is definitely my top choice. And I think that's it for the recipes that I'm going to share. I'm going to jump forward. Let's see. Go back to my screen. I'm going to jump forward to our next point about community support is tip number 2 for setting up the woman that's going through birth in your life in these times and what we're experiencing today. So number 2 is community support. What I suggest for you, I'm going to speak to you as if you're all that pregnant mother. What I recommend for you is to consider who are the 2 to 5 people in your life that you consider closest, that you consider just that you have this deep, intimate connection and deep trust with. And prior to going into labor, prior to delivery, I would recommend setting up with them, asking them to check in on you at least once a week throughout the first 6 to 8 weeks after giving birth. And the reason I say at least once a week, it depends on how many people are going to be calling to check in on you. If you just have 2 people, then maybe each of them will call to check in on you twice or 2 or 3 times a week. But this is to eliminate these pretty severe feelings and experiences of isolation that's coming up far too commonly for women and mothers today. So 6 months ago or a year ago, it was really easy to set up visits. And if it was an Ayurvedic or not, even just a regular postpartum doula, that was an incredible resource to have. But even if it wasn't a doula, it might have been your best friends, it might have been your family, it might have been your neighbors, all of who could have come to your home to make deliveries, to check on you, to share a tea, to meet your baby, to just have a delightful, relieving 30-minute conversation with you. That looks a little bit different today. So I strongly suggest with these 2 to 3 people that you feel closest with, setting up, asking them to call in to check in on you via FaceTime, through Zoom, however, whatever app you end up using, so that you can have some face-to-face interaction. This goes so much further than a simple text message that is received. While those are great as well, but a simple text message that's received that says, "Hey, thinking of you, how are you today?" It goes a lot less, it does less than, actually I'll say it does not do nearly as much as what that conversation does when your best friend or your sister or your mother, whoever it is, picks up the phone and calls you via FaceTime. Even if it ends up being a conversation with the phone placed down on the counter and they can hear you. A lot of times as a mother, a brand new mother, or a mother that may be a couple of months into it, we don't have both of our hands available. We have both hands on the baby. So setting up your phone somewhere nearby, maybe it's leaned up against a pillow, maybe it's leaned up against your desk or your counter, but just having that FaceTime, that direct contact, that direct interaction every single day does so much. And I did this just following my daughter's birth. I had a birth doula. She was there with me as I labored at home and then wasn't able to go to the hospital with me. But she was truly a blessing, and she was there with me at home while I labored before transferring. And then she called me throughout my first 42 days, and I believe even beyond that. And that call was FaceTime. A couple times it was Zoom, and a couple times it was with just me. A couple times it was also with my husband. Sometimes it was a 5-minute conversation, and sometimes it was a 2-hour conversation. It was amazing. And we laughed, and I cried, and I got angry, and went through the whole range of emotions that are going to come up for you as a brand new mother, and all of the hormonal fluctuations that we experience in that time. It's amazing to have someone that you trust, someone that you're really close with, to just be someone to hold the sacred space where it's safe to go into those conversations and to go into that expression of what's coming up in your heart. So set those, have those conversations now, prior to having birth, prior to delivering your child. And for those of you that are working with mothers that already have children, or for those of you that perhaps are already mothers and tuning into this video, it's never too late. So go ahead and get that set up today. The other thing that I'm going to say about community support is asking the new mother in your life that when she's ready, letting her know that when she's ready, you would be honored to hear, or for her to share with you her birth story. Our gardeners just showed up. There's some, I'm sorry, you guys. Type into the chat box if you can hear that. And if you can still hear me okay. Awesome. I'm glad you can still hear me. I'm going to talk a little bit louder. The joys of working at home. Okay, so birth story. Every single time this friend of yours, the new mother that you're supporting, every single time she shares her birth story is going to be healing for her. Whether she writes about it, whether she writes about it or shares it verbally, whether she shares it with her own mother, her best friend, her sister, whoever it's with, whether she shares it today, 1 week after delivery, or she shares it 2 years after delivery, it's going to bring up new realizations, new occurrences throughout that, however long her birth journey was. It might have been just a few hours. It might have been a super quick birth. And it might have been a birth that took place, that a labor, an early labor, early waves that she experienced and that went on for a number of days or even up to a week before she finally went into the active labor. So she likely has a lot to share. So as her friend, as her doula, make sure that you let her know that when she's ready, you would be honored if she could share, if she would feel safe in sharing her birth journey with you. I'm so sorry, you guys, that this noise is happening behind me. And then going back to meal delivery. So we talked about meal preparation as far as preparing for your foods that you're going to pack into your hospital bag. But then you can also consider meal delivery throughout the rest of your 42 days. So talk to these people in your life, and it can go beyond those 2 to 4 or 5 that you feel super close with, but it can be your coworkers, it can be your neighbors, it can be friends of friends, it can be your partner's friends, it can be your family, it can be etc. Like, really expand on growing your community at this point. And when they ask you, what can I do for you, or what do you need, is a question that I believe comes up a lot by different people in the life of the new family. Is, what do you need? What can I do for you? Or do you need anything? And it's really easy for the quick reactive response to be, I'm okay, thank you for offering, and just your care means a lot. But step back before we go into that reactive response and say, you know what, I would love a fresh cooked meal, a fresh cooked healing meal. So if you have a few of these Ayurvedic recipes, share one of those with them. If you're comfortable asking them to prepare it for you. If you live somewhere where there's a few restaurants or meal delivery possible that makes food accessible, that's, say, for example, a warm, nourishing bowl made with grains, and it's moist and it's soupy and it's nourishing and it has all the right fats and all of the right proteins. Something like that can be delivered and made available to you through, a gift certificate, or even a gift card from, this is coming from, say, a friend or a family that lives out of the area that wants to provide something for you. So rather than a cute new outfit for your baby girl, or, one of those things, making your meal delivery and your food intake a priority. So I suggest going through a few recipes, having a few on hand that you can share with your community, and asking others. Asking others. There's a ton of recipes being shared over on Instagram and through social media. I'm also more than happy to share them if you ask me. And as I mentioned in our course, we have over 42 recipes that we'll share with you. So set them up, maybe set up a calendar for yourself as a new mother, a 42-day calendar, and stagger your friends. So if a friend calls you and says, hey, or texts you and says, hey, I would love to make a meal for you, your response might be, I'm good through week 3, or I'm good through week 4. I would love for you to bring me food on week 5, or I would love for you to bring me food on Tuesday, whatever day it may be. So stagger your meal deliveries and stagger your care as best as you can. All right. Let's see, I'm glancing back over to my notes to just check if there's anything. I'm going to look over to the comments that have come in. Okay. Any questions about, I'm so glad that the gardener noise has come to a stop. I hope that it I hope that it remains quiet through the next 10 minutes. Any questions about any of that before I jump into the next conversation, which is, well, any questions about that? Or anything around meal delivery or setting up your food supply for the new mothers in your life? Are all the recipes also vegan friendly? That is a great question. So through the recipes, we do not use any animal products other than ghee, which is a staple for Ayurvedic postnatal care. I have worked with a number of clients over the last years, some that have been vegan, and I share with them the benefits of using ghee in the postnatal period, and they're totally open to also using ghee within that time of the first 42 days. And I've worked with other clients that are not comfortable with it and still would prefer to follow a vegan food intake. So yes, the recipes are all vegan friendly. And for the women that you support that, for example, prefer not to use ghee, you can easily swap it out with other oils. And again, I'm just thinking back to the recipes that we have. The only other animal products that we use are the bone broth, which can be swapped out for a veggie broth or a potassium broth. Both of those are also included in the recipe ebook. And the only other animal product that we use is milk. And sounds funny, perhaps, but it's prepared Ayurvedically, and it's a spiced milk tonic. So it's slow cooked over a warm heat using a ton of herbs and spices that help to break down the really hard to digest milk proteins. And this recipe is specifically great for grounding her. It's served warm, obviously. It's made with ghee, made with ginger, made with a ton of other spices that help to make it easily digestible. And it also helps with lactation. So again, I've had a few mothers that prefer to not drink milk, or they just haven't had milk for most of their life, perhaps. However, they're open to trying it in this way. Or with this preparation. I've also had clients who still are uncomfortable having dairy milk. So you can easily swap the dairy milk out for almond milk or oat milk. Those are my two top variations. And let me see if there's any other questions about this. All right, so yeah, I believe that's it for animal products. The rest of them are all plant-based and vegan-friendly, and complement easily a number of different women's taste preferences or precautions that you may take when preparing foods for a woman that, say, has an allergy or any sort of intolerance to specific ingredients. All right. Okay. Wow, I can't believe we have just 10 minutes left.
Jenna?
Yeah.
There's also a question from Amisha about dried foods.
Thank you. All right. After the first few days, can dried fruits be cooked into the oatmeal or granola bars? Yeah. You know what? This is a conversation that we can have in depth in the course, but I'm gonna hold back from answering it in this conversation only because we don't have enough time. It depends is really the answer. It depends. It depends on yourself if you're who's you're preparing the foods for, or it depends on the woman, the mother that you're supporting. It depends on how her gut is functioning. Dried fruits are actually fine to use to sprinkle into the oatmeal, as long as the oatmeal is, again, plenty moist and it has plenty of ghee and other ingredients that are adding into the moisture and countering for the dryness element of those dried fruits or other dried ingredients. So considering the whole of the dish that you're preparing, look at every single ingredient, and every single ingredient ideally is going to be Vata balancing. What's not Vata balancing for the gut, it tends to be dried fruits. So that's not to say don't use them, but just to be careful and to make sure that they're being, again, balanced out with ingredients such as ghee or extra moisture, however it's being used or however it's coming in. So that's my quick answer. And as we get into the food section, again, module 4, throughout the course, we can go and dive into even deeper conversation around these specific ingredients. All right, so with just 5 minutes left, the last thing that I want to talk about is some of the essential, some of the most essential practices that she can bring to life in her home. And when considered Ayurvedically, those essential practices include belly wrapping, they include warm oil massage, and they include herbal bath sits, etc., etc. So what I'm going to talk about here is the value, again, in communication, this time specifically looking at the communication with your partner or whoever you share, whoever lives in your home with you. And the reason that I'm considering this under the essential home postnatal practices is because it's not a one-time communication. It's a communication which ideally starts prior to birth, prior to delivery, but then it continues throughout the first 42 days. It's a constant checking in, and it's letting them know what's most important to you and what's most important for you for the reasons of healing. It's important that you communicate with them how important quiet space is. If there's other children in the household, if this is your second baby or your third baby or your fourth baby, asking him to really be in charge of, at least for these 6 to 8 weeks, to really be in charge of childcare for the rest of the household, to be in charge of childcare for the other children. So they do wake up, they do breakfast, they do whatever it is, Zoom meetings throughout the day if they're doing distance learning, taking them to the play dates, preparing dinner for them, all of it. So they truly get to play mother for a few weeks. And this is an investment, and an important investment, not in your own healing, but it's an investment that can be made for the entire house and for the grounding and the well-being of everyone. So this ongoing communication, and it often looks like the partner asking, if he or she is busy juggling all of the other things that are going on in the household, which gratitude for them for doing just that. They may ask you if you need anything. And a common reactive response by each of us as women or as new mothers is to say, no, I'm good, or no, I'm okay. When considered a little bit, when considered a little bit deeply, the truth is you're exhausted, you're tired, you're thirsty, you're in desperate need for a shower, or you're in desperate need to brush your teeth. So the appropriate response would be, yes, I would love 30 minutes. Do you have 30 minutes? Or can you make me a tea? Or can you bring me a big mason jar full of water with a straw? That alone truly does wonders for the new mother who spends hours in the rocking chair with the new baby. And to make for those hours that she spends with her new baby in the rocking chair a place where she can find solace and a place where she can find the nourishment that needs to be fed to her, then her essential needs also need to be met. The essential needs are having the right foods, having finger foods that she can just grab and snack and toss a date into her mouth, or toss a lactation cookie into her mouth, or toss one of those delicious snack balls that we also have recipes for into her mouth. Or again, that big mason jar full of water. So empowering the partner with the task of fulfilling all of these needs that the new mother has that you're going to be caring for. Even if so this is especially important, is that for the doulas that are working virtually with families today, which is most of us, even as you're working virtually, each of these conversations is very much possible with the mother or directly with she and her partner, she and her husband, or whoever else might be there in her home supporting her, if it's her other extended family. Come on a Zoom conversation with them, work your way through the points that you want to share with them, including checking on her every single day, aligning your community to make sure that you're going to have the right meal delivery, setting up your hospital bag so that it's going to be, you know, the ideal package for you for those 2 to 3 days before you return home. But these are the conversations that you can have with them. And this is just the start of it. This is just the brink of the tip of the iceberg. But these are the conversations that you can have with them as her doula to really shed to light an education that all new families need to have. And when I say new families, it's actually all families, whether it's their first baby or their 10th baby. Chances are they could all really benefit from being refreshed from each of these tips. Okay. Let's see, I'm going to jump over to our chat box. We're right at 1 hour, and I'm going to close up in a couple of minutes. But before I close, I want to just check with anyone if you have any questions about anything that we shared. If you have any comments or anything at all that you'd like to add in, you can type into the box or you can unmute yourself. All right. So again, before we all jump off, I just want to remind you, please share this. As soon as the recording is available, we're going to put it out there and share this with as many birth workers, mothers, women, others that might also be supporting new mothers in some light. Share this with others in whatever way you can. Make sure you jump over to my Instagram page, Ayurvedic Mamas, where I have the links for our Ayurvedic Postpartum Doula Fall Certificate course, which is going to be starting in just a couple of weeks. The early bird rate will just be in place for a few more days. The code is Early Doula. And I believe that's it. That's all of what I wanted to share today. And I want to thank you guys again so much for being on here with me once more. Jump back over to speaker view. There we go. Thank you again so much for being on here with me today. I'm so glad that we got through all of the content that we did. I'm going to be sharing again this video, this recording, as well as the khichdi recipe in one of my next emails that go out. So stay tuned there. And blessings to each of you. I look forward to connecting again, and I'm so grateful for you sharing the morning with me here. All right, namaste and thank you. Mwah.